Well, good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Samiksha Srivastava on World DNA today. 9 days after US-Israeli strikes killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and plunged West Asia into war, Shiite clerics convened to choose the third supreme leader since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iran's ruling clerics have appointed their slain leader's son, Mushtaba Khamenei, as the country's new supreme leader. We'll bring you more on who is Mushtaba Khamenei and what his election means for the Iranian regime.
Well, meanwhile, the U.S. oil benchmark soared above $110 a barrel, with investors bracing for further turmoil after Iran appointed the son of slain leader Ali Khamenei to replace him. However, U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed the war-related spike in oil prices as a small price to pay for removing the threat of Iran's nuclear program. Of course, we'll get to all the details on that. Let's begin the headlines at this hour.
Air sirens triggered across Israel as Iran fires first missile salvo after the appointment of new supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei.
Yemen's Houthis hail Mushtaba Khamenei's appointment as the new Iranian supreme leader, calls it a major blow for Iran's enemies.
Hezbollah says it is currently engaging Israeli forces in eastern Lebanon after reporting the infiltration of around 15 Israeli helicopters that allegedly crossed the border from the Syrian side.
Kuwait's air defenses intercept a new missile and drone attack on the Gulf nation as Iran continues its retaliatory strikes in its war with the U.S. and Israel. Several explosions also heard in Qatari capital, Doha.
There's a big sense of betrayal, but this miscalculation by the Iranians to attack the Gulf countries has destroyed everything.
Qatar's Prime Minister says Iran has betrayed Doha by attacking Gulf countries, rejects what he describes as Tehran's justifications and pretexts for the strikes.
U.S. asked most of its embassy staff to leave Saudi Arabia. The State Department orders non-emergency U.S. government employees and U.S. government employee family members to leave Saudi Arabia due to safety risks.
Firefighters tackle major blaze near Glasgow's central train station with rail services at Scotland's busiest terminal disrupted.
India beat New Zealand by 96 runs to become the first team to win the T20 World Cup back-to-back. They were also the first team to win 3 T20 World titles.
Our top focus is sour. Iran has announced that Mojtaba Khamenei will succeed his father, Ali Khamenei, as the country's supreme leader.
And this is signaling that the clerical establishment remains firmly in control in Tehran. And this is, of course, more than a week into the conflict with the United States and Israel. While Mushtaba has never held any official position of power, for years he has reportedly operated at the heart of Iran's power structure. He studied Islamic theology in Qom and reportedly has strong ties with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, having served during the Iran-Iraq War.
Well, little is known about Mojtaba Khamenei's personal life. He reportedly has 3 kids, but details about them are scarce. His wife, his mother were killed alongside his father in US and Israeli strikes on 28th of February.
Well, Western intelligence assessments also link Mushtaba Khamenei to an extensive global financial network. He reportedly oversees investments stretching from Tehran to Dubai and Frankfurt. Reports describe layers of shell companies, managing assets tied to oil revenues, and holding allegedly include shipping operations in the Persian Gulf, bank accounts in Switzerland, and luxury properties in the United Kingdom.
Mushtaba's appointment will likely draw the ire of President Donald Trump, who'd earlier said that Washington should have a say in the selection process. Also that of Israel, whose military had warned any successor, it won't hesitate in targeting him.
And well, to discuss these latest developments, we're now being joined by Dov Zahim, former Undersecretary of Defense in George W. Bush administration, who is currently Senior Advisor at Center for Strategic and International Studies, is joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on our broadcast. Now, what we know is, of course, that U.S. and Israel, they know that whoever is the next leader will be the target. Considering that, how do you think Iran will functioning now? Because the son of Ali Khamenei, he has close tie with the IRGC, and so of course the decentralized power that existed in a few days after Ali Khamenei's death is now, of course, we seem to see stability there. How do you think will Iran act as of now when they know that Mojtaba Khamenei is the next target?
Well, there were stories as early as about 5 days ago that he was the likely candidate. And that, in fact, is what prompted President Trump to say that he was against that and he wanted to be involved in the choice of a leader. Well, obviously, he was not. He probably will be very, very annoyed. And that simply means that the war will continue for some time. Now, you've shown how Khamenei has been a behind-the-scenes person working with the IRGC, like his father, actually, has that network, has a lot of money all over the place. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Iran does now have a coherent leadership. It shows you that the IRGC is still powerful. If he were not acceptable to the IRGC, he would not be in the job now. How effective he can be when he knows that the Israelis have total control of the skies, as do we, the United States, which means that we and the Israelis will be on the lookout to get him. And you've got to remember, too, that the intelligence that's coming out of Iran has probably a lot to do with the fact that so many Iranians hate the regime and are willing to work with the United States in particular. Yes. So it's not at all clear to me what this appointment really means in practice. They're firing drones as best they can. They've alienated the Gulf countries. They've essentially united the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, in a way that it never had been united before. You heard what the Qatari leadership feels about this. They feel totally betrayed. And as you and all your viewers will know, the Arabs don't forgive easily. They don't forgive, they don't forget. And of course, in this case, they have no reason to forgive and forget. I think the Iranians made a huge mistake continuing to fire at the Gulf states. And even after they said that they regretted doing so, they've continued to do so. And the IRGC will remain a target. I don't know that in a material way this makes much difference. Yes, the Houthis have said how wonderful it is, but so far the Houthis have held their fire in a general way.
Yeah.
And Hezbollah is paying the price for getting involved yet again.
Yes. Dav, a quick follow-up question to that. Now, despite the messaging being sent out by Iran by electing Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son as the successor, talk to us about whether his election as a supreme leader could spark dynasty rule debate in Iran.
Sorry, I didn't catch the last half of your question.
Could it spark dynasty rule debate in Iran, the fact that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son has been elected as a supreme leader?
Well, I mean, it does look dynastic, doesn't it? And I think it'll simply cause even more resentment amongst ordinary Iranians. You've got, of course, the ethnic minorities that are organizing, the Kurds in particular, but also the Baluch. They're not going to be very happy with all of this. The one thing that I think people don't necessarily consider is that Khamenei may decide that, fighting the United States and Israel and alienating the world is not necessarily good policy. And if he does have some independent strength, he might do what Leclerc did in South Africa or Gorbachev did in Russia, in the Soviet Union, and do an about-face simply to save his country. You've got to remember that right now, because the United States and Israel have total control of the air, total air, not superiority, supremacy. They are in a second phase knocking out Iran's industrial capability. They are sending Iran back a half century, maybe even more than that. Whether Khamenei is willing to put up with that, maybe he does. Maybe he has a martyr complex. I don't know. But there's always that small chance that he'll realize this is not doing anything for anybody, including possibly the IRGC itself.
And that being said, of course, Iran is still adamant on elongating the war. They say that this is going on for, they can stress this for 6 more months. Of course, I'll take your opinion on if that is possible. On the other hand, when we see that oil prices have surged above $110 per barrel, and Trump says that oil spike on Iran war, of course, is a small price to pay. Can U.S. also afford to go for 6 months, if at all that is going to be happening in the future?
Well, we can do it. There's no problem. I mean, when I was in the Pentagon and I was in charge of the budget, I was funding $100 billion for the Afghan war, $100 billion for the Iraq war. We'll fund it, and we'll find the money. That's not a problem. We have enough munitions. Our military leadership has said so to continue. So do the Israelis. In fact, because there's total air dominance, they don't even have to use smart weapons as much. And the number of Iranian missiles that are actually being fired continues to diminish simply because the launchers are being taken out. Yes, they've got drones, but there are ways dealing with those as well. Drones are being shot down. They're having trouble overflying the Gulf because the Gulf states are shooting them down. Jordan is shooting them down. So if anybody's going to run out of gas, as it were, I use that as a metaphor, it'll be the Iranians, not us.
Yes. A follow-up question to that. Now, Iran also claims at this point that it destroyed 4 U.S. THAAD radars with precision-guided missiles. How, in your point, is U.S. missile defense infrastructure positioned at this point?
Again, you'll have to repeat the second part.
Yes.
I'm
I
very
wanted
sorry.
to know how is the U.S. missile defense infrastructure is positioned at this juncture?
Well, look, I mean, it's clear that we're going to do what the president wants. The president has said he's going to continue this war. And because of that, regardless of what the Israelis want, I think I need to make that very clear. This is the president's war. And the reason I say that is because the Iranians tried to kill him. And so he'll go after the younger Khamenei just like he went after the older one. And he will continue. When he says total surrender, unconditional surrender, he has in mind what we did to the Germans and the Japanese in World War II. Now, whether he can change what he means by that is certainly possible. But in the meantime, he is destroying or ordering the destruction of Iranian infrastructure. It's not just Iranian weapons capability anymore. Look at what we're doing to their oil refineries. Look at what we're doing to their ability to produce anything. How long the government can continue to do that, the Iranian government, and stay in power is an open question. He wants to see a change in power, and it may well happen. You cannot continue to take the kind of bludgeoning that the Iranians are taking. Maybe they can go on for a while, but they're not going to outlast the United States. I can guarantee you that.
And also, Trump has now said that ending the war will be mutual decision with Netanyahu. There, of course, it seems like it's almost like so what is the end goal for Israel? And it almost looks like Trump is waiting for Israel to do its work, and then we'll be agreeing, okay, now Israel has agreed to this, so we'll stop the war. So who's making the decision?
Well, you know, I know Mr. Trump has said that, and we all know the Israelis want to see a change in regime. But at the end of the day, Trump's going to do what he thinks he needs to do. And if you recall, when the Houthis were shooting at ships in the Red Sea, tankers and cargo ships, Trump decided to essentially cut some kind of arrangement with them without consulting Netanyahu at all. Right now, their objectives are the same. Right now, we and the Israelis are fighting alongside each other. Whether Mr. Trump will continue to see eye to eye with Netanyahu, to me, is an open question, because Donald Trump does what Donald Trump wants to do. And if it suits him to work with Bibi Netanyahu, he will. And if he chooses to do something that Netanyahu doesn't want, doesn't like, doesn't approve, he'll do that too. Nobody, I think, can say that Donald Trump ultimately takes account of what other people think to his own detriment. That's just not the way our president operates.
Also, let's also turn our focus on these Gulf states. But when we look at the cost of war, it is, of course, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait. All of these countries are taking the brunt. They have stopped their production, and it, of course, leads to global consequences. So, at this point of time, how long can these Gulf states wait for the protection of U.S. until at a point when they start to retaliate? Because, of course, we've heard, as you mentioned, leaders saying that they have been betrayed, Qatar saying that Iran has betrayed. It almost looks like this is not what they expected. And betrayal is different than, being enemies. How are you assessing how the Gulf states will be acting as of now? They have not retaliated so far.
Well, I think their first objective, of course, is to shoot down whatever is fired at them. And that in and of itself, of course, reduces Iran's capability to hit at the Israelis or to hit at American bases. So that's number one. Number two, I think whatever damage they take, and they'll certainly be damaged as there already is, that they know they can reconstruct very, very quickly. I remember after the first Gulf War, I was in Kuwait right after that war ended, and the place was a mess. You couldn't even see the sky because it was full of smoke from the exploded oil facilities. Within a year, they had pretty much reconstructed. These states have a lot of money. They will get the best people to do the reconstruction, so that they know they can do. As far as trade is concerned, yes, it's a difficulty for them, but they will figure out a way. These are very, very talented people that are running the industries of these countries, so I'm pretty confident about them. Will they go on the offensive? My guess is they'll be hesitant to, simply because they'll have their hands full just defending.
On the other hand, there's another point here in this West Asia war. German Chancellor had warned about the new migration crisis that can occur if this conflict goes on. How do you assess that crisis happening? Because we've talked about trade, we've talked about oil. What about the migration crisis that can occur?
Well, there's no doubt that there could be migration. The question is where from, actually. It's not like the Syrians crossing into Turkey The Iranians actually could cross into Turkey, but those are the Iranians who probably want to stay and fight the government. So there may be people from the Gulf who want to emigrate. There may be people from Iran who want to emigrate. But it's not at all clear to me whether you're going to get the same magnitude of immigration or emigration out of the region that you had when during the Syrian civil war, when Turkey was literally almost overwhelmed in eastern Turkey by all the refugees, who aren't, by the way, now starting to go home. Yes, there might be refugees, and I can certainly understand the chancellor's concern, because the Europeans, of course, have been flooded with refugees over the last decade or so. But I'd like to wait and see on that one, how big the magnitude really is, say, compared to what the Germans themselves, when they let in 1 million people, had to deal with not all that long ago.
Well, of course, we'll have to wait and see of everything that's happening after the election of the new Supreme Leader. Thank you so much, Mr. Zakim, for joining us. Always a pleasure talking to you and taking your insights.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, an Iranian official has said that the country is engulfed in flames, smoke, and acid rain, worries after Israel and U.S. attacks on 5 oil storage facilities in and around Tehran.
Well, Ismail Baghei, Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson, has accused the US and Israel of committing war crimes by targeting Iran's energy infrastructure. He said that these attacks on fuel shortage facilities amount to nothing less than intentional chemical warfare against the Iranian citizens. In response to which, US Energy Secretary has downplayed the attack and said that America will spare Iran's energy infrastructure.
All right, said, and I'm quoting, "These are Israeli strikes. These are local fuel depot to fill up the gas tank." He adds the U.S. is targeting zero energy infrastructure. There are no plans to target Iran's oil industry, their natural gas industry, or anything about their energy industry.
AFP, quoting its journalists, reported a cloud blanketing Tehran, a result of smoke that had accumulated from fires that had burned all night. According to reports, residents noticed a burning smell in the air, with many claiming the sky seemed black and rain even as the sun rose. The Iranian Red Crescent said that the explosions at the oil depots discharged significant quantities of toxic hydrocarbon compounds, sulfur and nitrogen oxides into the atmosphere. The Red Crescent even warned of skin burns and severe lung damage from the extremely dangerous and highly acidic rain. Iranian environmental officials recommended people to stay indoors to avoid respiratory difficulties and other health risks.
The CEO of the National Iranian Oil Products Distribution Company, Karamat Kaskarami, said that the risk of acid rain was high, as Iran's oil depot had sufficient gasoline reserves. Acid rain is any form of precipitation, rain, snow, fog, or dust, with high levels of sulfuric and nitric acids.
Separately, Iran's ISNA news agency that cited the country's National Center for Nuclear Safety Systems said a gamma irradiation facility in Iran's Isfahan province was severely damaged, but no radiation pollution was reported. In fact, Iran has now threatened proportionate strikes on regional oil sites, and that is if Israel and US continue to hit the country's energy infrastructure.
Well, meanwhile, in what the IDF called in an extensive series of airstrikes, Iranian regime sites in Tehran and other cities were targeted as Israel continues to pound the Islamic Republic.
Well, global investors are bracing for greater volatility as tensions in West Asia escalate.
And while pressure on oil shipping and infrastructure grows, and as a result, oil prices have surged above $110 per barrel for the first time since 2022. And that is when Russia invaded Ukraine and Wall Street stock futures crashed.
At the open on Monday, U.S. crude surged 22% to as high as $111.24 a barrel, after it added a record 36% last week. The West Texas crude has now nearly doubled from its December low. Benchmark Brent crude too soared above $110 a barrel.
Well, in a Truth Social post, U.S. President Donald Trump dismissed the war-related spike in oil prices as a small price to pay for removing the threat of Iran's nuclear program. He noted, I'm quoting, short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, is a small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Only fools would think differently, unquote.
Meanwhile, major producers in West Asia have already reduced output. UAE, Kuwait and Iraq have already curbed output as the Strait of Hormuz storage fills with nowhere to go. Storage centers are also fast approaching capacity as Iran war enters its second week.
Well, Dave Mazza, Chief Executive Officer at Roundhill Financial, said, and I'm quoting, "This is no longer just about Hormuz being effectively shut. It is about supply disruption spreading deeper into the region." He adds that that is the kind of shift that can push already nervous investors to take more risk off the table.
The bleeding in stocks extended with Wall Street equity futures crashing at open on Monday. The dollar gained broadly against most of its major peers. Bitcoin crashed below $66,000, extending the rout. Selling swept across regions and asset classes last week as a geopolitical flare-up added fresh stress to markets that are already under pressure from AI disruptions.
Michael O'Rourke, Chief Market Strategist at Jones Trading, said the worst is yet to come in the stock market reaction. I would expect more of a risk-off mood until we get some tangible positive news.
Whether driving, flying or just trying to heat homes, consumers worldwide are fast feeling the effects of widening Iran war. The prices of gasoline, diesel and jet fuel have soared as the conflict rages on, with Trump pressing for Iran's complete capitulation. Analysts predict that prices will rise sharply, adding fire to inflation fears as well. And bets on prediction market platform Kalshi show that oil could surge as high as $147 a barrel this year itself.
Oh, well, it's a time for a very short break of World DNA. Coming up next, India beat New Zealand to become the first team to win the T20 World Cup back-to-back. We'll get you all the details and action on what was on the ground. On the other side of this very short break, you're watching WION World. Stay tuned.
With data is that
in an ever-changing, fast-paced world, identifying the pulse of global happenings is important. Because it is the pulse that truly measures the real nature of world events. It monitors the shifting geopolitical landscapes and anticipates what lies ahead. At WION World Pulse 2026, we tap into the heartbeat of events that matter to you and to the world. 7 pulsating themes, 100 plus thought leaders, 1 dynamic platform, WION World Pulse. The rhythm of the new world order.
welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World this month, and this is World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar, and my colleague, Samisha Srivastava. Let's begin with the headlines.
The Indian embassy in Riyadh has rejected reports of an Indian national's death in a projectile strike in Saudi Arabia amid the escalating Iran war. According to the embassy, one Indian national was injured in the attack and is currently undergoing treatment.
Air sirens triggered across Israel as Iran fires first missile salvo after the appointment of new supreme leader Mushtaba Khamenei.
Yemen's Houthis hail Mojtaba Khamenei's appointment as a new Iranian supreme leader, calls it a major blow for Iran's enemies.
Hezbollah says it is currently engaging Israeli forces in eastern Lebanon after reporting the infiltration of around 15 Israeli helicopters that allegedly crossed the border from the Syrian side.
Kuwait said defenses intercept a new missile and drone attack on the Gulf nation as Iran continues its retaliatory strikes in its war with the US and Israel. Several explosions also heard in the Qatari capital, Doha.
It is a big sense of betrayal, but this miscalculation by the Iranians to attack the Gulf countries has destroyed everything.
Qatar's Prime Minister says Iran has betrayed Doha by attacking Gulf countries, rejecting what he described as Tehran's justifications and pretext for the strikes.
US asks most of its embassy staff to leave Saudi Arabia. The State Department orders non-emergency US government employees and US government employee family members to leave Saudi Arabia due to safety risks.
Firefighters tackle major blaze near Glasgow Central train station with rail services at Scotland's busiest terminal disrupted.
Oil prices surged about 20% on Monday, hitting their highest since July 2022. War continues to block shipping through the Strait of Hormuz choke point.
India beat New Zealand by 96 runs to become the first team to win the T20 World Cup back-to-back. They are also the first team to win 3 T20 World titles.
Now, Iran fired missiles at Israel in the name of its new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei.
And this while explosions continue to rock its neighbors in the Gulf. Meanwhile, oil prices have soared above $110 per barrel for the first time in almost 4 years. Let's take a look at the top developments that we have been tracking for you at this hour. Mojtaba Khamenei has been selected to succeed his slain father as Iran's supreme leader. Mushtaba's appointment comes 9 days after U.S.-Israeli strikes killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and plunged West Asia into war.
The 88-member Assembly of Experts convened to choose the country's third supreme leader since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iran's Revolutionary Guards, as well as regional allies Houthis and Hezbollah, have quickly pledged support for the new leader.
This assembly, after thorough and extensive deliberations and by utilizing the authority granted under Article 108 of the Constitution and in accordance with its religious duty and belief in being present before Almighty God, in today's extraordinary session, based on the decisive vote of the esteemed members of the Assembly of Experts, appoints and introduces Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei, may God preserve him, as the third leader of the sacred system of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Iran launched its first missile attack at Israel after the appointment of new supreme leader. In Israel, sirens warning of incoming missiles sounded across much of the country's north and center, including cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa, according to the military's Home Front Command. Police said officers were called to at least 2 sites in central Israel, where, according to local media, interceptor debris fell.
Meanwhile, several explosions were heard in the Qatari capital Doha as Gulf nations reported new attacks, with Iran pressing its retaliatory strikes across the region. Qatar's defense ministry said on Monday that its forces had intercepted a missile attack.
Saudi Arabia's defense ministry said the kingdom intercepted and destroyed 2 drones heading towards the Shaiba oil field in the southeast of the country. Saudi Arabia said Sunday that 2 people were killed and 12 wounded as a projectile landed in Al-Kharj province.
Kuwait's defense ministry said that the country's air defenses were working to intercept a missile and drone attack on Monday. It was on Sunday that the Gulf nation was targeted by 7 missiles and 5 drones, according to figures released by the authorities.
Now, in a sign that the United States does not expect a quick end to the war, the State Department has ordered non-emergency staff to leave Saudi Arabia. This is days after a drone hit the U.S. Embassy. The U.S. military announced that a service member had died after being wounded in Saudi Arabia, the 7th American combat death in the war.
As Iran continued to target its oil-rich Gulf Arab neighbors, the benchmark price for a barrel of crude soared beyond $100 a barrel for the first time since Russia's invasion of Ukraine 4 years ago.
U.S. President Donald Trump had dismissed the price spike as a small price to pay for removing the alleged threat of Iran's nuclear program. But the markets in Japan and South Korea, both heavily dependent on energy imports, opened the week sharply lower on Monday.
Israel struck 5 oil facilities in and around Tehran, killing at least 4 people and sparking blazes that left the skies filled with smoke. Tehran's governor said that fuel disruption had been temporarily interrupted in the capital. A dark haze hung over the city for the excess of 10 million people, blocking out the sun and the smell of burning fuel that lingered in the air. Authorities warned the fumes could be toxic and urged citizens to stay indoors, but many windows were blown out by the force of the blasts.
Hezbollah, on the other hand, on Monday said it is engaging Israeli forces who landed in eastern Lebanon by helicopter across the Syrian border, the second such operation since the outbreak of the latest conflict with Israel. Lebanon has been drawn into the war last week when Iran-backed Hezbollah attacked Israel in response to the killing of Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei.
Israel struck a hotel in central Beirut on Sunday, saying it had targeted 5 commanders of the Revolutionary Guards International Quds Force. Lebanon's health ministry said that 4 people had died and 10 others were injured in Beirut strike. Lebanon's health minister said that at least 394 people had been killed in Israeli airstrikes, that is, since the start of the war, which includes 83 children and 42 women.
And well, of course, we were earlier joined by Asa Saleh from Sweden. He's a journalist and Kurdish political analyst, and this is what he had to say on the current situation. Let's listen in.
With the period of summer at the war, 12-day war, the Israel, especially, they just eliminated the top leaders, and the regime and the institutions remained. But at this time, I think the attacks are significant, and they are not only eliminating the high commanders or maybe the supreme leader. The Iranian regime is not like, for instance, Venezuela, or not like the Iraqi Saddam. This regime leadership based on institutions, and for that purpose, to overthrowing that regime, you need to attack their institutions. The people of Iran, they are not so happy with this regime. So maybe at that point, the pressure from the people and maybe military pressure from the US and Israel and maybe Kurdish parties will overthrow this regime.
Well, following the announcement of Mushtaba Khamenei as new supreme leader of Iran, reactions have been pouring in from Iran and the US.
And this comes as the US-Israel war continues to rage on. Now, Iranians have been divided over the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei. Supporters of the new Iranian supreme leader could be seen cheering with the posters of Mushtaba and also waving the country's national flag.
Iranian citizens backing Mushtaba hailed the decision, while they said that they are glad that a new leader has been selected. In fact, they went on to add that the new supreme leader is the most deserving to lead the nation.
After an entire week of waiting, and of course the shock of the passing of Ayatollah Khamenei inflicted on the society, we are very glad that now the leader has been selected. Now we are sure that the path will continue with his leadership.
I heard the news that he was the selected leader. I'm very glad. I believe he is the most deserving to lead the Shiite nation.
Well, on the other hand, chants of death to Mushtaba by detractors of the Iranian regime echoed across a neighborhood in Tehran.
Well, following this, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, swore allegiance to the country's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei.
Well, furthermore, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said that Mushtaba's appointment would facilitate in strengthening national unity. He also stated that Iran will achieve scientific and technological progress under his leadership.
Similarly, Yemen's Houthi rebels hailed the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei as the new supreme leader of Iran, calling it a major blow for the enemies of the Islamic Republic.
And in a statement, the Iran-backed faction called the selection as a new victory for the Islamic Revolution.
On the contrary, criticism came pouring in from the US. Senator and Republican Lindsey Graham said that the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei is not the change they are looking for. He also went on to say that it is just a matter of time before he meets the same fate as his father.
Now, earlier on Sunday, U.S. President Donald Trump, in an interview with ABC News, had said that a new leader is not going to last if the Iranians don't get his approval first. Well, last week, Trump told Axios, and I'm quoting here, Khamenei's son is unacceptable. Two Bangladeshi nationals accused of killing Bangladeshi political activist Osman Hadi have been arrested in West Bengal.
Well, they were arrested in the Bandgaon area by the Special Task Force. The accused have been identified as Rahul alias Faisal Karim Masood, a resident of Patua Khali in Bangladesh, and Alamgir Hussain from Dhaka. According to the STF, the two were apprehended in Bandgaon in North 24 Parganas district on the intervening night of Friday and Saturday, following specific intel inputs.
Officials say the suspects had illegally entered India through the Meghalaya border, and they have been moving through several locations before reaching Bandgaon, allegedly planning to cross back into Bangladesh. During the preliminary interrogation, the accused reportedly admitted their involvement in the murder.
Sharif Osman Hadi, a 32-year-old political activist and co-founder of the platform Inqilab Moncho, was shot dead in Dhaka's Purana Paltan area on 12th of December last year. And that is while he was travelling in an auto rickshaw when two men on a motorcycle approached and the pavilion rider fired a point-blank shot.
Bangladesh police had earlier identified Faisal Karim Masood as the shooter and Alamgir as the motorcycle driver. Hadi had gained prominence during the 2024 student-led uprising in Bangladesh, which eventually led to former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina losing power. His killing triggered widespread protests and riots across Bangladesh. A charge sheet filed by Bangladesh police on January 6th named 17 people in connection with this case, citing political vengeance as the motive. The arrested suspects were produced before a court on Sunday and have been sent to police custody for further investigation.
Well, the spike in oil and natural gas prices from the Iran conflict may seem eerily similar to the 2022 energy crisis.
But the economic backdrop now looks very different. In this next report from jobs market to monetary policy, we dive into what has changed over the past 4 years. Take a look. A glance at the surge in energy prices and the market reaction to the Iran conflict seems similar to the start of the Ukraine war in 2022. But is 2022 really the right playbook for how this crisis plays out in the global economy? To state the obvious, that is going to heavily depend on how long the conflict lasts and how long the Strait of Hormuz is de facto closed. There are two scenarios to base the outlook on. The first one is that the disruption is relatively short-lived. This is a case where supply begins to normalize after 4 weeks, bringing energy prices down into the second quarter. The macro impact is relatively contained. In this scenario, Eurozone inflation heads briefly to 2.5% in the June quarter, and the US and UK to 3%. Enough to delay, but not derail, further Federal Reserve and Bank of England rate cuts, and not enough to move the ECB out of its good place. The other scenario of prolonged war would mean a much larger supply shock for global economy. Qatar warned that it will take some time for energy deliveries to return to normal, even if hostilities end immediately. So a prolonged conflict would mean a much worse outlook. Analysts at ING Markets say 3 months of full disruption would take crude prices above $100 per barrel. Still, the starting point for the global economy looks very different right now from the beginning of the 2022 energy shock. Back then, the jobs market was still grappling with the fallout of the pandemic. Since then, the jobs market have dramatically cooled. Vacancy rates have collapsed across the world. In 2022, the strong jobs market helped protect consumers against the energy crisis. That is much less true today. 4 years ago, central banks were able to hike rates aggressively to bring inflation down. But with the growing outlook already tarnished from President Trump's aggressive trade tariffs, major central banks will find it difficult this time. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One. Well, history has been scripted in Ahmedabad. India have beaten New Zealand by 96 runs.
And with this, they have become the first team to successfully defend men's T20 World Cup title. Men in blue have also become the first side to win the T20 World Cup 3 times.
and the first team to lift the trophy on home soil. And put into bat first, India got off to a flying start. Abhishek Sharma and Sanju Samson took the Kiwi bowlers apart as India raced to 92 runs in the 6-over power play, the highest power play total in this World Cup. Abhishek brought up a rapid 18-ball 50 and put on 98 runs in 43 balls before he was dismissed for 52 by Rachin Ravindra. Samson continued the assault and brought up his third consecutive half-century. He was joined by Ishan Kishan in the middle, and the pair continued India's onslaught as they smashed 105 runs in the next 48 balls. India were 203 for 1 after 15 overs when Samson fell just 11 runs short of a T20I century. James Neesham struck twice in the 16th over to briefly slow India's momentum, but Hardik Pandya quick 18 off 13 balls and Shivam Dube's last over blitz of 24 runs helped India post a massive 255 for 5.
The highest total ever in T20 World Cup final, that is, when Shivam Dube dropped a catch in the very first over. Memories of the 2023 ODI World Cup final flashed before the eyes of Indian fans inside the Narendra Modi Stadium. And when Hardik Pandya was hit for 21 runs in the second over, it felt like history was about to repeat itself. But Akshar Patel and Jasprit Bumrah changed the course of the game in the next 3 overs. Patel picked up 2 wickets in the 2 overs, while Bumrah removed Rachin Ravindra. As India firmly took control of the final, from there on, the Black Caps were always on the back foot, and 2 more wickets effectively ended their hopes of winning a maiden T20 World Cup.
At the halfway stage, New Zealand were struggling at 88 for 5. A 52-run partnership between Daryl Mitchell and captain Mitchell Santner took the Black Caps past the 120-run mark, but once Mitchell fell in the 13th over, India had the match in their pocket. Bumrah finished with 4 wickets, while Akshar Patel picked up 3, as New Zealand were bowled out for 159.
Well, the Narendra Modi Stadium witnessed a night of absolute dominance and class as the Indian men's cricket team defeated New Zealand by 96 runs.
Well, the victory sparked a massive wave of celebrations across the film fraternity. From Mumbai to Hyderabad, the biggest names in Indian cinema took to social media to hail the men in blue.
The king of Bollywood, Shah Rukh Khan, led the tributes with an energetic salute to the team spirit. On his social media account, he said, and I quote, "What a comprehensive victory. Well done to our men in blue. You guys are champions, and watching you on the field has made us all very proud. Take a bow. Jai Hind," unquote.
Well, global star Junior NTR highlighted the team's unwavering focus throughout the 2026 tournament, noting the historic nature of the win. He wrote, and I'm quoting, "This is how our men in blue showed up with calm, composure, and dominance throughout the tournament and brought the trophy home again and created history. Congratulations, Team India. The nation will sleep well tonight."
Legendary filmmaker S.S. Rajamouli was quick to point out the standout performers. His post said, and I quote, "Champions again, Sanju, Bumrah, Dube, Ishan. What a solid performance. Salute to Team India. Jai Hind," unquote.
Well, a sentiment of pure dominance was echoed by Vicky Kaushal, who wrote, "World champions, pure dominance, pure class. Well done, Team India."
Well, that's all we had in this edition of World DNA. News and updates to continue. You're watching WION World is One.
ever-changing, fast-paced world, identifying the pulse of global happenings is important. Because it is the pulse that truly measures the real nature of world events. It monitors the shifting geopolitical landscapes and anticipates what lies ahead. At WION World Pulse 2026, we tap into the heartbeat of events that matter to you and to the world. 7 pulsating themes, 100 plus thought leaders, 1 dynamic platform, WION World Pulse. The rhythm of the new world order.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is One. Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is One.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power. Only on WION. World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Vielleicht nur